this isn't ideal. I've got this black shirt and dark lipstick, but I am fundamentally the opposite of a spooky person. I didn't have a goth face. What is wrong with me? Hello, happy fall, happy autumn. Welcome to my channel. My name is Chloe if you are new here, and today I've returned. I'm on my floor again. I tried to make the wall a little bit less bland, so I've got this dying plant and this clock that doesn't work. We are here today. What is this? I am going to be sharing some of the spooky, Halloween, autumnal, some of that vibe of books that I personally want to read in the next month. I'm not calling this TBR because I think I have almost 20 books on this list, so it feels a little bit somewhat unlikely that I will actually get through all of these, depending on my library holds and my mood. Like, I am a bit of a mood reader, so if I get halfway into October and I'm like, I want to read a romance, I'm gonna read a romance. So don't hold me to this list as the TBR. And also, I haven't read any of these books. I have researched these books and think that they will be good and think that they are things that I will enjoy, but I haven't read them yet. So if you read them and you hate them, don't get mad at me. But if you are looking for some ideas, some inspiration, I am here to share some creepy, eerie, spooky, Halloween-y, fall-ish, that vibe of books to carry you through the month of October. Without further ado, let's get into it. The first book that I would love to get up to this month is The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. This is described as a fantasy feminist novel, obviously about witches. I know that it takes place in like a puritanical society where a girl, I think, is kind of grappling with her family and her town, her village, her community. I think specifically as it relates to witches. Her parents are two different races, which is looked down upon in this world, so she's sort of blasphemous, quote unquote, herself. And perhaps this girl maybe even discovers that she has powers. I honestly don't even know, but feminist, witchy debut novel. I believe the author is also a Black woman. Lots of awesome things about this book. Really excited, looking forward to getting into that. The next book on my list is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. This book is thriller, I guess, about a reporter who spent some time in a psychiatric hospital and then leaves to go report on the murders of two young women, and sort of just grappling with her past and also trying to figure out what happened to these two women, and some scary things, thrilling perhaps, ensue. I am a little bit wary. I read Gone Girl last year. I know I'm years late on that. I hadn't even seen the movie. Still haven't seen the movie. Don't really care to see the movie because I didn't love Gone Girl. I actually just got rid of it. I have heard better things, I think, about Sharp Objects than Gone Girl, so I'm looking forward to giving that one a try and seeing if I like it more than Gone Girl. But I have heard that it succeeds at being quite creepy, so looking forward to that. The next book, which I actually have a physical copy of, is When No One Is Watching by Alyssa. This is a book I've been looking forward to for months. It just came out just within the past couple of months, I think. When No One Is Watching is pitched as a psychological thriller about a Black woman who grew up in Brooklyn, and all of her neighbors and the people that grew up with her in her neighborhood are all of a sudden moving out of Brooklyn, purportedly because of gentrification, but the underlying thought is that something a little bit more malicious, although gentrification is also malicious, is going on that's causing these people to leave. It's been pitched as in the same realm as Get Out. Yeah, I think the concept for this sounds really unique, really interesting. We love a thriller with social commentary, so I'm very intrigued by this, and have been excited about this book for a long time, so I was really excited to be able to get my hands on it. So I've got two books by Stephen Graham Jones. The Only Good Indians is another thriller that I think also is pitched as sort of an infusion of thriller horror with social commentary. It follows 4 Native American men who some event from their youth catches up to them that then horror and scary things ensue. The synopsis does not share much more than that. A disturbing event from their youth puts them in a desperate struggle for their lives. Tracked by an entity bent on retribution, these childhood friends are helpless as the culture and traditions they left behind catch up to them in a violent, vengeful way. Nobody's pitched it to me as such, but in my head, thinking about this as a more adult, scarier version of The Marrow Thieves, which is a really excellent YA fiction book by Sherry DeMoline. If you haven't read it, you should. I think I'm just imagining that because I haven't heard literally anybody say that. I just think that that maybe is something that will be a thing. A thing that I have, and many others have noticed about kind of the horror thriller genres, is that they are quite white. So I am really looking forward to reading a horror by an Indigenous author. Similarly, Alyssa Cole, the author of When No One Is Watching, is a Black woman. I'm all about diversifying what I'm reading. The mainstream books in these genres are very, very white. The other one by Stephen Graham Jones is his newer book that I think is more of a novella, which is Night of the Mannequins. Don't know much about this one other than that it sounds like mannequins come to life in a terrifying way. Unclear whether it's paranormal or some kind of prank, but mannequins are creepy. I feel like there should be consensus on that. Next up, we have Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. Gratefully picked this up at a thrift store for like $3. We love to see it. Then She Was Gone tells the story of a woman whose young daughter disappears, and several years later she meets a man who has a daughter who looks to be remarkably similar to the daughter that went missing from her and around the same age, and oh my gosh, could it be her daughter? I've heard that this is pretty messed up and pretty creepy, which I'm a fan of. For those that don't know, Lisa Jewell has written like several creepy, thrillery type books. I read Watching You over the summer, which was the first and only book that I've read by her. I liked it. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. I figured out the ending before I was, I think, supposed to figure out the ending, which kind of, it made it somewhat less enjoyable, but it was still good. She did a really good job at crafting like a neighborhood and a setting that was very eerie and really helped move the story along. But I just like the gasp and like the that I wanted, I did not get in that book. But this, I think, is one of her kind of best rated books. And all that to say, though I wasn't taken aback by Watching You in the way that I had hoped to be, I read it in like a day and a half. My feet are numb, but now I'm really low to the ground. At this point, you might be like, I don't want to read any of these books. These all sound creepy. It sounds like you're willing yourself into being scared. And you're correct. That is what I want out of these books. I would like to lose sleep, have to get up and check under the couch every time I hear a noise in my house. Like, that is what I seek. It may not be what you seek. I will share 4 graphic novels that are a little bit lighter, I think, and not necessarily as scary. The first one is Sheets by Brenna Thummler. I think that like the only justification for reading this in October is that there's a ghost in it, which I think is fair. Sheets follows a young girl who runs her family's laundromat business and meets a ghost named Wendell who lives in her family's laundromat for reasons I'm not entirely certain of. I've heard it's really cute and the illustrations look really cute. Yeah, it's been on my list for a while and I was kind of saving it for October to read it because ghost. This one I've shown on my channel already is Coraline. This is the graphic novel version of Coraline by Neil Gaiman and illustrated by P. Craig Russell. Coraline tells the uniquely terrifying story, I don't know what that noise is, of a little girl who escapes her real family to this alternate universe where everybody has button eyes. That's not a good description, but that's the description I'm gonna give you. The third one is Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell, and Faith Erin Hicks. This is a graphic novel that takes place in a pumpkin patch and follows two teenagers who work in that pumpkin patch who are looking for an adventure and I think also have a crush on one another. Blah blah blah. It's their last season in the pumpkin patch, so they're looking to like go out with this pumpkin patch season in a bang. Again, it looks really cute. And the final one, which I do not have and thus may not get to because I don't need to buy any more books and I don't really want to read a graphic novel on my e-reader, but that is Mooncakes by Suzanne Walker and Wendy Zhu. This is the story about a teenage witch who works in her grandmother's bookshop, loaning out books of spells and helping with supernatural investigations in her town. A werewolf comes to town. She's trying to track down this werewolf and perhaps love ensues between teen witch and a lonely werewolf. That's what I've got on that. The next up is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Reid. This book has been out for a couple years now. So yeah, since 2016, is getting a lot of attention right now because the Netflix movie just came out, which I haven't watched and will try to not watch until I finish the book. It's actually pretty short. Oh, I got a bookmark. Follows a couple who are on a road trip, and throughout this road trip the woman is thinking of ending things with her partner. I haven't heard much more about the synopsis of this. I think it is like a deeply psychological kind of one from my understanding. It says it will haunt me long after the last page is turned, so I will hold the back cover to that. Next up, two books that I don't have. Again, one my library hold just came in, and one, yeah, I think it will never come in. Those are Riley Sager's Lock Every Door and Home Before Dark. I think Riley Sager has 4 books, all horror, thriller. I don't really know the difference between horror and thriller, so like don't listen to me when I throw off these genres randomly. I don't know what I'm talking about. And yeah, these have really taken sort of book YouTube by storm. Home Before Dark is a haunted house story of a woman who grew up in a supposedly haunted house where lots of creepy things happen. She returns to it as an adult and more creepy things happen. I've heard that this book does a really good job at sort of balancing that tension between like paranormal and human horror, kind of making you unsure whether it's a ghost, whether it's a serial killer. Lock Every Door is about a woman who is apartment sitting at a really creepy old mysterious building in Manhattan, and it turns out previous apartment sitters have mysteriously gone missing, and oh my god, is there a trend here? And maybe she could go missing or bad things could happen as well. So that one will probably be one of the first ones I read this month because I have it in from my library. So really excited about that. Those are, I think, the 2 Riley Sager books that I've heard the best things about, but I know he has 2 other books that people also really enjoy. Next is another one that I think fits, but I don't think is a horror creepy type of book, and that is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I am really excited to read that. I pre-ordered it. I don't have it yet. I think it's somewhere in the world of shipping. Really hope that it gets to me sometime so I can read it this month. This is a YA book about a young Latinx trans boy whose family is not being affirming with regards to his gender, so he summons a ghost to try to help him, as one does, and shockingly things go awry when a ghost is summoned. I don't know much more than that. It did make it onto the New York Times bestsellers list, I think last week, which is super awesome. The author is also a young trans Latinx. I'm so excited to read that. Have been hearing great things. The next 2 that I've got, I won't talk about in detail because I literally just showed them in my last haul, but those are Misery and Pet Sematary by Stephen King. Again, I've never read a Stephen King book. These are 2 that I have heard are good places to start. For the sort of Halloween-y autumn vibes, I will probably start with Pet Sematary. Townspeople bury dead pets. There's a cemetery, and then there's some other stuff going on that's even creepier than a place where you bury dead pets. The most frightening book Stephen King has ever written, according to the back of this book, which I think is probably from like the literal 80s. 1983. Misery, if I can get to it, I will. An author who is kidnapped, held hostage, possibly tortured by a fan. If I have time, we'll get to maybe this one. I think hopefully definitely Pet Sematary. Next up is The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware, which is very reflective. Ooh. The Turn of the Key follows a nanny, yes, live-in nanny who is nannying for a child in a smart home. Flash forward, the child is dead. The nanny is in jail and writing about what happened that led to this instance. Ruth Ware, like Lisa Jewell, has written several creepy books. Chose this one because I have not read anything by her, and this seems to be quite widely considered one of her best. Like Lisa Jewell, like Stephen King, Ruth Ware, where I know if I like this book, there are lots of other books of hers that I can read, which is exciting, because doesn't it just suck when you read a book from a new author and you love them and they haven't written anything else yet? Casey McQuiston, as I wait for one last stop and die a little bit inside every day. So yeah, this is exciting, looking forward to it, have heard fantastic things. I did buy this, even though I said I wasn't going to. LOL. I added the next one to my list. What a throwback. The Witches by Rowell. It's a story literally surrounding witches existing in the real world and them being terrifying. My mom and I used to watch The Witches around Halloween, and it gave me nightmares. Like, the movie was also very creepy. Also feels good to point out here that pretty sure Rowell was like a pretty horrible person. Just know that if I read that book, I will not do it uncritically. Next up is one that, again, not my like top priority for the month, but one that I would like to get to if I have time, and that is Wilder Girls by Rory Power. Wilder Girls follows a girls' school that has been ravaged by some type of illness and is under quarantine as the book is being written. Another one that I've heard mixed reviews about, but I am just not one of those people that wants to read a book about an illness during a pandemic. It's just like not my vibe. I know that a lot of people also ran to read Station 11 when COVID-19 hit, and it's just like, I just don't know if that's for me. A little bit too close right now. I think my like mental health and brain need to decide if I'm prepared to do that right now. And the final book that is on my list for this month, which is actually probably the very first one that I will read, is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I didn't realize that Haunting of Hill House, the show, was based on a book, and not only is it based on a book, the book was published in 1959. Like, this is, I think, actually quite a classic within the horror genre. It's also very short, I think, like in the realm of 100 pages. Follows 4 people who arrive at Hill House, and it's haunted. And creepy things happen, and maybe people die. It does feel fitting to start off this month with sort of a bit more of a classic, if you will. So I'm looking forward to that. There you have it. It has gotten significantly darker since I've started filming this video, so we're gonna wrap it on up. Let me know, what are you reading? What are the creepy, spooky, Halloween-y, them vibes books that you're going to get up to this month? Thanks for tuning in, hoping that you maybe got some ideas, some inspiration, some things that piqued your interest for you to read. It's a really good time to stay inside and read a book. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope to see you next time. Bye.